Please come.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, sir. Good morning. Thank you, sir.
So, Mr. Atul Tyagi, you are from Delhi.
Yes, sir. My native is in Delhi. But I've been staying in Gujarat for the last 10 years.
Oh,
Yes.
but schooling, college, everything in Delhi or outside Delhi?
Sir, from 8th class onwards, I've studied in Gujarat itself, and my graduation is also from Gujarat.
Okay. Okay, so shall we start?
Sure, sir.
Tell us something about yourself.
Sir, I'm Atul Tyagi. After completing my graduation in English literature from the Sanskari Nagari of Gujarat, Vadodara, I have now joined the civil services as an Indian Defence Account Service probationer. And sir, I also aspire one day to represent our country at the international platform, aligned to which some of my interests include exploring Indian diaspora literature.
Very good. How would English literature help you in any of the services that you opted for?
Sir, I believe that in civil services and administration, people connect is the soul of engaging the masses towards progress and development. And literature is the core of that communication. It is how we are able to express our thoughts, ideas, and also influence masses. So I believe that literature will help me in that. And so also literature provides us the skills of empathy and compassion by viewing topics from different points of views. So at both these ends, I feel literature will be an asset.
Empathy and compassion. Literature provides you these two aspects. How? I don't understand.
So because literature is the expression of our deepest feelings, and also when from different point of views, we are able to understand what is at the heart of the issue. It's like we say stepping into somebody else's shoes. So literature provides us that opportunity.
But even history is a better medium for that. It tells you stories about real people.
So I would say literature gives you the more humane aspect of the same story. History has a little more rational endeavor towards it of explaining why things happened, but how the humanity was impacted by it deep inside is something that literature explores.
Okay. Now you've stayed in Delhi and you've stayed in Gujarat. Now Delhi is an urban conglomerate, melting point of various cultures. Gujarat is Gujarat. What are the cultural differences that you might recall between Delhi and Gujarat? I gave you an introduction already. Delhi is a melting pot. Gujarat isn't.
So to a certain extent, I would beg to differ, considering that Gujarat attracts a lot of migrants, and we have people from different religious backgrounds. We have an active population of Jainism, Buddhism, we have Islam as well. As I remember, around 22% of Vadodara is Muslim. But sir, the differences I can feel is that Delhi is more fast-paced, while Gujarat is a little, I can say, more relaxed, relatively.
Gujaratis are not known to be relaxed people. They travel the world and very aggressive businessmen.
So, but they do at their own pace.
Okay.
And sir, one more difference I can think of is the drinking culture, which is relatively absent in Gujarat as compared to Delhi.
Has prohibition worked in Gujarat?
So I would say it has worked to a certain extent. It has definitely worked in the public space, considering that drinking alcohol or being in a drunken state in the public space is a huge, not just a taboo, but also the law and order is very strict. But sir, I do agree that back-end channels do remain there, and some issues like the Hooch tragedies have also come up. So, sir, I feel it's more about...
Is it possible to enforce prohibition? No country and no state in India has been able to enforce prohibition. So they have experimented with it, but then gone back to non-prohibition status. It is unenforceable.
So Sir, I feel it is enforceable, as is happening in Gujarat. There are few grey areas. For example, a parallel economy that is coming up. So my suggestion for that is, as we already have certain measures like the health permit, so it's not that consuming alcohol in Gujarat is completely banned. It is allowed at certain angles.
On what grounds is an alcohol license given?
Sir, it is medical grounds, but
What
I
medical
don't
grounds?
know exactly. I'm not sure what exactly are those medical grounds.
How much revenue, excise revenue, would the state be losing? Any idea?
Sir, I only know rough figures. I might be wrong as well. So,
No, then avoid. Okay. What is this Gujarat model that everybody talks about?
Sir, Gujarat model is a term that is given roughly from 2002 onwards, from where we have seen a heavy growth, a huge growth in our GDP. The Gujarat model is based on capital intensive and heavy infrastructural growth, where emphasis is on heavy investments, infrastructure development, and
Basically an economic model.
yes, sir.
What about the HDI, Human Development Indices? As far as human development indices go, Gujarat is not at the very top. It's way behind. Why is that?
So there's no denying the fact that this trickle-down effect, which is at the heart of a capital-intensive development model, has to prioritize.
So would you recommend it for other state as it is being presently recommended?
So the Gujarat model.
Yes. Say in Bihar, which is very backward and struggling with their economy. Would you recommend it for Bihar?
Sir, I would like to quote Amartya Sen, from which this debate came up about Gujarat model. Sir, Amartya Sen himself suggested a middle ground. So there are certain things, for example, infrastructure. We as a developing country do lack infrastructure at certain junctures. The Gujarat's ability to attract FDI, this is very much necessary in a capital deficient country like India. But sir, as has been pointed out, that social sector is also ignored because of that. So Amartya Sen himself suggested a balance between Gujarat model and a model like the Kerala model, where we also focus from the bottoms up in the social sectors. So I would recommend an amalgamation of both of these models.
The shipbreaking industry in Gujarat is passing through difficult times. Are you aware of this?
Sir, I'm aware of the environmental impacts of it.
No, my question was different. Anyway, since you're not aware, we'll move on to something else. Now, Delhi, what do you recall of Delhi? Do you recall what the administrative structure of Delhi is or was when you were there? Or you were too young?
Sir, as in the conditions of...
No, administrative structure. It's a 3-tier, 4-tier administrative structure. It's a very unique administrative structure in the country. That's why I'm asking you.
Yes, sir. I do know 2 layers. One is the MCD. Second is the New Delhi Municipal Corporation. And sir, the third I'm not aware of.
Okay. Now, did you read the newspapers today?
Sorry, sir. I've not been able to do it for now.
Okay. When do you think the Ukraine war will end?
So speculating that would be a very difficult challenge. But sir, I would say the only solution is the solution that India is suggesting, which is dialogue and diplomacy. Sanctions have already been seen not to work out.
Nobody's listening to India, neither the Russians nor the Ukrainians.
Sir, I would beg to differ from it, considering that already there's an example that the Honorable Prime Minister has engaged with both the parties 5 times.
That's all right. That's engaging with both parties doesn't mean that he's been asked to mediate. Not even asked to. It's a media thing that India should mediate, India should mediate. But really nobody has asked India to mediate. But should India mediate?
Sir, definitely I feel that India should mediate, considering that we have had a very balanced approach. We have not sided with any one force.
But we'll end up annoying both parties because the solution is intractable. Russia won't give up on the territories, and neither with Ukraine. For example, Crimea. Ukraine has still not accepted Russian suzerainty over it. So what about the eastern Ukrainian areas? So nobody will give in. So India will get into this quagmire, annoying both. So as a foreign service aspirant, would you still go for mediation?
Sir, I do agree that the present situation is very, very tricky. But sir, this is the only solution I see. I see that India's stance has been adopted in international platforms as well. In G20, in the Bali summit, the Prime Minister's called that this is not the era for war. So foreign policy and so foreign relations are a marathon. They are not a sprint. So I agree that it's going to take a lot of time, but I feel that we are going in the right direction, and given an opportunity, we should definitely be a mediating power.
My last question, Kashmir, how is the situation as you perceive it now?
Sir, I do see the conditions still to be very precarious, considering that Kashmir is flanked by 2 nuclear powers, which are not at very friendly terms with us. Sir, in realism, it is a fact that we do not have complete sovereignty over Kashmir at the moment. But sir, our assertion will always remain there.
We don't have real sovereignty. What does that mean?
So it means that though we claim sovereignty, but there are territories which are occupied, like the Pakistan.
You're talking of the POK. I'm talking about the Indian part of the Kashmir. We have total and complete sovereignty over it. I'm referring to that part of Kashmir. Is there peace? Has peace been restored after Article 370 and 35A?
Sir,
this is what the government claims.
That's right.
That the terror incidents have reduced, killings have also reduced, and therefore there is peace. But is there lasting peace?
Sir, I see lasting peace for sure. That is there because.
What are the 2 more important conditionalities that must be met before there is lasting peace, before the situation really becomes normal?
So the very first is the political participation, which is missing for now. And so the second is to bridge the developmental gap.
Okay, you've forgotten Pakistan. The role of Pakistan in Kashmir.
Yes, sir, the cross-border terrorism.
Can normalcy be achieved without dealing with Pakistan?
So considering that a lot of threats are coming from cross-border terrorism, that's also one essential factor.
How do we deal with Pakistan in respect of Kashmir? We are not talking with the country for many years now. Cross-border terrorism hasn't stopped. How do we deal with it? Is there a solution to it?
Sir, in this regard, I see the limitations that India can do, considering that the issues are within that country in itself. The political power in that country is largely by military forces. And as long as that is not dismantled, any effort of peace is going to be hampered, which was seen when Lahore Declaration was made. Immediately there was the Kargil War and 2001 parliamentary attack. There were efforts by Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi as well, and then we had the Pulwama and the Uri attack. So sir, I am for diplomacy, but I agree that there are certain limitations. I think our priority must be to guard our borders for the time being and try to engage as much as we can to shift the political power in Pakistan to a democratic setup.
How can we do that? We can't interfere, we can't initiate regime change as the US does. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Please.
Atul, why did you choose the foreign service as your first preference? It's quite odd really these days. Most of the candidates, they want to go for IAS or revenue services. Why foreign service?
Sir, I felt that in times of globalization, the opportunities are crossing boundaries, and so no longer foreign policy is only foreign. Now it's impacted every single person right to the grassroots. I've read an example that even a fisherman in Gujarat is impacted by the foreign policy of the country.
All right. Fair enough. But then the foreign policy is not the preserve of only the foreign service. Everybody in the government plays a role, and the Prime Minister is the most important person to make the foreign policy. So then my question remains, why foreign service? Secretary of Finance makes the foreign policy because the money comes from there. Why foreign service?
So one more personal reason is that during my sporting career in table tennis, I experienced what it feels like to represent a part of the country, Gujarat, in the nationals. And there I realized that the absolute honor of representing the entire country in itself is the most valuable
So
for me.
basically, like you said before, is the basically the glamour of representing India at an international forum,
Sir,
right?
Sir, usually glamour has negative connotations to it.
But it is that, isn't it?
Sir, I would beg to differ. Glamour usually, I have heard these accusations a number of times that the foreign policy.
No, it's not an accusation. I want basically what drives
Yes, sir.
the ambition.
Sir, I agree it's the pride of representing the country.
All right. Do you think the United Nations has worked in terms of maintaining the world peace?
So United Nations had its golden period, considering that after the ravages of World War II, we have seen considerable decades of peace. Even liberalism is through the framework of United Nations. But sir, at the same time, it's no longer representing the 21st century realities.
All right. We will go a short conversation rather than long answers, because that way we can. Do you remember 1962? Not in terms of India and China, but in terms of the Bay of Pigs. So, do you remember that? Cuba-US war?
Sir, I have a rough idea about it.
Tell me. What happened in 62?
So it was a part of the Cold War era. It had to do with the Cold War, where there was nuclear threat, but the MAD doctrine, mutually destructive.
Completely off the mark.
I'm sorry, sir.
Okay.
I'm not aware.
Don't guess.
Sure.
All right. But it happened in 62 when the United Nations was there. Was the UN able to prevent that threat?
Sorry, sir. I'm not aware of it.
You're not aware of it. All right. After the World War One, there was the League of Nations,
Yes, sir.
right? Was the League of Nations able to succeed in preventing war?
No, sir. It wasn't able to do so. Very first reason is the participation.
I didn't ask for the reasons.
Okay.
If it did not, and the UN also could not prevent the threat, is it reasonable to assume that the multilateral organizations are not able to do their work? Now about your reasoning and that's it.
Sir, I would say that there have been failings, but now that we are shifting from multilateralism to multipolarity, where there are number of rising powers and there's no access of superpowers. So, sir, I see that working in the present context now rather than multilateralism.
Have we become a multipolar world already?
Sir, I think the US still dominates, but we see a rising challenge in the form of China. We see other powers of the global south, including India, Brazil. So we are inching towards it, but not entirely yet.
Okay. Where does G20 fit in this multilateral scheme?
Sir, G20 is the most is the platform which is actually representing the 21st century realities at the largest level, considering that we have not just the P5 members, we have the G7 members, but we also have representatives of these rising powers like China and India.
But has G20 been able to deliver on the promises or any of the expectations of the other countries? How long has G20 existed? Tell me that first.
So it started in 1999 after the
Mhm.
Asian financial crisis, and 2008 onwards it
Uh-huh.
got the summit level.
Okay.
It was raised to the summit level.
1999, 2008.
Yes, sir.
Don't you think it's a long period? So has G20 been able to deliver on any of its expectations? I'm not even talking about the promises. Has G20 been able to deliver on the expectations? What's your take on this?
Sir, I need to read more about what were the results of G20 to be
Mhm.
able to say that.
Okay, what is the theme for the present G20, where India is the president?
So it takes from our ancient idea of Vasudev Kutumbakam, and it goes one earth, one family, and one future.
One earth, one family, one future. What does that mean? Very grandiose kind of a formulation. What does that mean?
Sir, I do agree with the grandeur, but considering the issues of the present times, we do need a grand idea.
What does it mean?
So the primary idea is to create a global consensus over problems which don't have passports. So basically problems which are transnational in nature, be it the climate change, be it multilateral reforms.
What is the most important common problem faced by people in this world at the moment?
Sir, I feel climate change is the most important issue because it's threatening our very existence.
Okay, that's a one. What about the economic deprivation of the South?
Yes, sir, that's a problem that the South faces, but often the North may ignore.
Okay, what is the GDP growth rate of the, let us say, China at the moment? Just give me the trend over the last 2 or 3 years. Give me the GDP growth rate of China, India, Indonesia, and Brazil.
Sir, I'm sorry, I'm not aware of the figures for now.
Do you think the COVID has impacted on the economy? And if so, in what way? How?
Yes, sir, it has impacted all the economies, considering that features like lockdown were universal. It has impacted global supply chains, and in this globalized world, everybody is connected. So, majority of the countries are impacted by it.
Have you heard about something called BIMSTEC?
Yes, sir, I have.
What is BIMSTEC? Give me the full name first.
Sir, I'm unable to recall the name for now.
What is SARC?
So it's South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation.
Who are the members in SARC?
Sir, it includes nations of South Asia, which is India, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and sir, I'm missing one more.
Maldives?
Sir, I assume Maldives is also one.
Okay. When was the last meeting of SARC, summit level meeting?
Sir, I have to check on that.
How important is SARC in terms of regional cooperation, as the name contains? How has it delivered on the expectations again of the people and the countries?
Sir, SARC is the association which is meant to build bridges, both literally and metaphorically, considering that World Bank in itself has stated that South Asia is the least integrated region throughout the world. But sir, as to the delivery, we have seen that there is a lot of friction, primarily associated with the India-Pakistan divide, which is why even the SARC FTA, the free trade agreement, has not been able to pass through.
Okay. Let's just one last question. You haven't read the papers today, you said.
No, sir.
But there is a news item today in the newspapers about the Prime Minister having taken the initiative for a virtual South Summit.
Yes, sir, I'm aware.
You are aware.
Yes, sir.
Tell me a bit more about what this virtual South Summit is about.
Sir, I don't know the details, but I know that it was yesterday announced by the Mr. Foreign Secretary, and said I have to know more about it.
What are the dates? Do you remember the dates?
I think it's 12th and 13th.
But you have not read what actually is going to do, agenda, etc.
Yes, sir, the objective and mandate, I have to read more about it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Well, Atul, just a little while before you told that you know about the environmental impact of the ship breaking industry in Gujarat. So can you tell us what are the environmental impacts? You told that you know about environmental. What are those environmental impacts that are going to be there with this ship breaking industry issue?
Sir, the first issue is that it uses a lot of water. So there was water scarcity and ground level water depletion. And so the second I know is that there were protests as to why so much scrap from outside is coming into our country. So that's the little idea that I have.
But how the protest is going to decide your environmental impact? Protest by people.
Yes, sir.
So how it is going to decide the environmental impact?
Said that's what I'm not aware as to what are the reasons behind the protest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Acha, tell me, is there any global consensus on climate change issue?
Sir, we do have the Paris Agreement,
Okay.
and we conduct the COP summits.
Okay. Summit, right. Consensus. Yeah.
Sir, I'm failing to understand, get what is being hinted at.
What is the latest COP summit that has been held?
Sir, the COP26 was the latest summit.
COP 26 was the latest.
Yes, sir.
Where it was held?
Sir, I have to go back to it. I'm not able to recollect.
You are not able to recollect about it. Okay. Have you heard about Sarmal Sheikh Summit?
Sir, I've heard, but I don't know much.
You don't know about all. Okay. Okay. Now you tell me, do you think that Indian diaspora, it has become more effective in recent times?
Sir, in terms of the remittances, yes, it has been more effective, considering that it's about to cross $100 billion this year. So the other aspect is our reach. Our reach has also increased. So the expectations are the counter results are also going to increase.
Counter?
The results are also going to increase.
Increase.
Yes, sir.
So besides monetary issue, monetary things, what are the other things where the diaspora is going to affect India as India per se?
Sir, there's some expected areas are the exchange of knowledge, technology, expertise. Also, lobbying is a manner in which the politics of the other country can be expected to be in our favor, our geopolitical favor.
Geopolitical favor. Which are the countries where our lobbies are getting stronger as far as the diaspora is concerned?
So roughly I do have an idea of the United Kingdoms
United Kingdom.
and the United States both.
Okay, United States Kingdom and United States both. Okay. Have you heard recently there was a news that now the Election Commission is going to facilitate the voting of migrants.
Yes, sir.
What is that?
Sir, the estimation is that around 68% with 68% voter turnout, and we have around 35 crore migrants within the country, which are expected to be missing out when it comes to voting. So the efforts are that we can arrange these.
Is your figure 35 crore? You are sure about it? 35 crore migrants?
Sir, I might be wrong, but
Okay.
I think that is the figure within the country.
Within the country.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there any chance that the outside country also the Election Commission goes to the embassies and then the voting etc. is done? No.
Sir, I know that there is a process of electoral voting for NRIs, but That's the rough
That's
idea.
that's the only thing you're aware of. Have you heard something about climate finance?
Yes, sir.
What is climate finance?
So climate finance has been a concern for the global community, where it's expected that the North is going to help finance the climate mitigation efforts of the South. In the Paris Agreement, it was promised that $100 billion per year will be financed through the North, but it has not been able to bring out the results. That we have not been able to mobilize that.
The North.
Yes, sir.
They are to fund the global South.
The climate mitigation efforts.
Climate mitigation efforts.
Yes, sir.
What are the other efforts for climate to check the climate, global warming, and other one is mitigation. What are the other things?
Sir, other than mitigation?
Other than mitigation.
So one, I can think of the individual efforts of changing our lifestyle in itself, which is the idea proposed by India in form of lifestyle for environment. So more sustainable efforts, more sustainable way of living in our own individual consumption levels.
Can you elucidate on that? Can you illustrate something about the modest way of living, or some change in living? How? What you will do? If you are to adopt life, that is life cycle for environment, if you adopt it, you want to adopt it, what are you going to do?
So from the most simplest of activities, like not leaving the tap open or not leaving the electricity open, but sir, also a conceptual change. In today's economy, it's a linear model where you buy, you use, and you discard it. But we can change it by making a circular economy, which is first buy rationally, second reuse it, and third to redesign it so that we recycle it and we are able to use it again.
Okay. Have you heard about the e-waste management in India?
Yes, sir. I know about the rules, but not in much
You
detail.
know about what are the rules, when they were framed, the e-waste management rules. By the way, which ministry frames all those rules?
Sir, I have to
You don't
check
know.
it.
So these rules are framed the year you
Sir,
know?
it's 2016. They came up for the first time in 2016.
E-waste management rules.
Yes, sir.
2016. So recently they have been modified, or they have been framed, or something like no?
There must have been amendments.
Amendments.
I need to look into.
Do you know some basic things about e-waste management rules?
Sir, I would have
You-
to
you
check
would-
more
you
about
would.
it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
Atul. Thank you very much.
Mr. Atul, just a couple of more questions.
Yes, sir.
You know, we were discussing climate issues. You know, the threat posed by climate change is existential. You know, if you go to 2 degrees centigrade, if the temperatures go beyond 2 degrees centigrade, then there's going to be a lot to pay. You know, sea levels rising, droughts, and floods, and the consequences of which we are already seeing. And even with this understanding, with the COP meetings, time and again say, countries are still cribbing about who is responsible for the present state. Where is the funding going to come from? Is the technical help coming from the developed countries or not? We are still cribbing over these things, whereas it is an existential threat. We should forget about everything and start work on. Nations should start working on their targets. What do you think? They are not. With the Ukraine war, just going back on coal. So, do you think we have not realized the existential threat, the countries?
Sir, I see the problem in the North-South divide itself, where the blame game is being shifted from one party to the other. Considering that the climate change impact has a time lag from the actions that take place, the effects come much later. So it is true that the developed world has already made its share of carbon emissions, while the developing world has a legitimate claim for our development as well, considering we have a lot of issues to take care of. And so this is why the responsibilities are being
So
shifted.
you think this finger pointing should continue? Because the nations haven't really got down to the task.
Sir, ideally speaking, the claim of the South is very legitimate because we have a lot to work on. Around 22% of our population, according to Tendulkar Committee, is below poverty. So we have our legitimate claims towards development.
Tendulkar Committee was 10 years ago. Times have changed. Anyway, the National Statistical Organization, the NSO, has come up with its first projection estimate of GDP growth in the current fiscal. And it says the GDP will grow at 7%. The early estimates was 6.9, 6.8, RBI and the IMF. So 7% is reasonably good. Are you aware of this development, of this new report by the NSO?
Yes, sir, I don't know the recent report.
You haven't read it?
No, sir.
Okay. But even then, tell me your understanding of the growth projection in the medium term of the Indian economy. You see, NSO has said 7%, FY23. What about FY24? There have been projections made for the next year also. Are you aware of the projections?
Sir, I don't know about the
Do you think
projections.
the growth will be better or will it moderate next year?
So compared to 7%?
Yes, compared to this year. If it is 7% this year, next year, will it be less than 7% or more?
Sir, I do assume that it should be better than this year, considering that we still have impact of the COVID pandemic, we have still Russia-Ukraine war going on. So if things stabilize better, I assume that it should be higher than the estimates of 7%.
You're guessing, aren't you?
Sir, based on a very basic understanding.
Thank you.